keep saying they're trying, but what about you? When does your trying start counting? Because you've been the translator, the processor, the regulator, not because they love how you feel, but because they can survive how you think. I just want you to see what's going on, because they didn't choose you for your soul. They chose you for your skill set, and you thought this was a relationship, but it was therapy with no license, no boundaries, and no end date. And you thought you were building love, but you were building a clinic, and you didn't even feel safe enough to fall apart, because if you break, there's no one left to manage the emotional plumbing. If you cry, they panic or they vanish. But it was because you were never allowed to be anything but stable around them. You weren't loved, you were dependent on. And there's a difference. There's a difference. You weren't built for this kind of exhaustion, this kind of spiritual case management. That you weren't built for that. That isn't true. This much intake with no reciprocity, with no feedback form, with no thank you, no, just a body that holds it all and a mouth that doesn't dare to ask to be held in return. That's what you think you were built for? You were made to be whole. The truth that you've been too afraid to say, right? Beyond that is that they're not getting better. They're not. They're just getting better at using your vocabulary. They've just learned your emotional language like it's a script, like it's a social code, like it's a way to stay near you without ever having to change. Because you've been making meaning out of scraps. You've been narrating the story so well, you forgot how to ask if you're even in it. Because you are. The story that you've been narrating, that you've been communicating, all that emotional scripting, all that is, you weren't speaking from that in distance. That wasn't what was happening. You gave them emotional housing, but never noticed that they never gave you furniture. No safety, no holding, no return, just a rotating door of breakthroughs that never includes you. And the worst part is that you think they're growing. That's the biggest tragedy in here. But really, you're shrinking and you're calling it love, but it's emotional gentrification again. And I just want to show you how often this happens. You become tidy, resilient, easy to love, because mess is a luxury you can't afford. And when someone does finally offer to hold you, you don't even know how to let go, because you made a career out of holding everybody else. You were never even meant to be the treatment plan. That you were meant. If you want me to tell you what you were meant for in that relationship, to be loved. Not managed, not learned, not translated, held. And the most dangerous part of this type of situation, just to paint you the full picture. No matter how much work you do, no matter how many breakdowns you absorb, no matter how many childhood wounds you map, no matter how many family patterns you narrate, they will still come back next week with that same problem. Because healing was never the goal. I just want you to see how serious this is. Comfort was. Control was. Not losing you was. But holding you, that was still not in the treatment plan. And that's not what you were meant to be. You don't owe them another round of insight. You don't have to stay because you understand them better than they understand themselves. You don't got to be their therapist. You don't. You are not their home. You are your own type shit. Do you see what I'm saying? I just want you to get it. You think you've been their partner. I promise you that copay ain't never hit your account.